You don't even know when it happened. But somewhere along the way, you stopped trusting yourself. Not because you're weak, but because the world got louder and your own voice got buried beneath the noise. You ask everyone for advice and still feel more confused. You scroll, compare, perform, and then cry in silence because you still feel lost. You wonder, why can't I hear what I really want anymore? The truth is harsh but sacred. It's not that your inner voice left you. You just haven't had a quiet moment in too long to hear it. And maybe no one ever told you this, but clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from finally coming home to yourself. In the next minutes, I'm going to show you how. Even if you're overwhelmed, emotionally numb, or burned out, stay with me, because your inner voice isn't gone. It's just waiting to be heard again. You wake up, and the world is already speaking for you. Notifications, calendars, expectations. From the moment your eyes open, you're bombarded with noise, not just sound, but pressure. Be productive. Be visible. Be more. No one ever taught you how to listen, only how to respond. But deep beneath all that chaos, there's still a whisper. A gentle hum that doesn't shout for attention, but waits for a presence. It's not gone, just buried. Your inner voice is not silent, it's overwhelmed. And the truth is, the more disconnected you are from your own rhythm, the more exhausted you feel trying to live in someone else's. We've been conditioned to distrust stillness, to fear quiet moments like they're wasted time. But silence is not empty. It's full of signals from the self, the ones we've been trained to override with logic, performance, and urgency. Your body already knows what's right for you. Your breath, your skin, your nervous system. They've been whispering all along. But the world taught you to tune into the noise instead, to trust numbers over intuition, to seek validation instead of direction. The ache you carry? It's not failure. It's the soul's fatigue from constantly being interrupted, even by your own mind. This isn't just emotional. It's biological. Neurologically, the brain needs rest from sensory input to allow deeper processing. Studies in neuroscience show that insight arises during moments of calm, not during the chase. That means clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from slowing down, from making space for what's already trying to surface. Think of a snow globe. When shaken, everything swirls and the scene disappears. But when you set it down and wait, everything becomes clear. Your inner voice is like that. It can't compete with the storm. But the moment you pause, the truth emerges, not as a scream, but as a knowing, not as a to-do list, but as an inner yes. Stillness is not the absence of life. It's the return to it. If the world is too loud, it's not because you're weak. It's because your sensitivity is tuned for something deeper. You weren't designed to function in constant stimulation. You were designed to feel, to discern, to intuit. And what you've been calling overthinking might actually be the beginning of remembering who you are. So let this be your first step, not to find your inner voice, but to remember it's been with you all along, waiting for you to listen. You keep asking, what's my intuition saying? But have you noticed your chest tightens before your mind catches on? Your stomach clenches before you can name what's wrong. That's not random. That's intelligence, just not the kind we were taught to trust. Long before words, your body knew how to speak. A flutter in the ribs, a soft no behind your eyes. Science calls it interoception, the brain's ability to sense internal signals. It's how your body becomes your compass, how your nervous system whispers truth before thought interrupts. But we were trained to ignore those signals, to dismiss the ache as weakness, to numb the gut feeling with logic, to override the tremble in the hands with performance. But what if the trembling is sacred? What if the butterflies are not fear, but guidance in disguise. When you start listening to your body like an oracle, you stop begging the world for answers, because suddenly you feel the answer inside your breath, in the way your feet resist a room, or the way your shoulders collapse when you're not where you belong. You don't need more advice. You need reconnection. The body never lies. It just waits until you're quiet enough to hear. You think the world is too loud, and it is. But sometimes the real noise isn't around you. It's within you. A chorus of borrowed voices. Your mother's worry. Your teacher's doubt, that old heartbreak's warning. All replaying like a broken hymn. You sit in silence, but the silence isn't silent. It's filled with expectations you never questioned, with judgments you never chose, with beliefs that once protected you but now keep you stuck. And so when your inner voice tries to speak, it gets buried under 10 others that aren't yours. That's why you can't hear your intuition, not because it left, but because it was drowned out by the noise you thought you had to obey. The noise that says be realistic. Don't be selfish. Who do you think you are? But what if the volume knob was inside you all along? What if the first step to hearing your soul is learning which voices to stop feeding? Because clarity isn't always about finding the answer. Sometimes it's about knowing which questions were never yours to carry. Sometimes the voice you're trying to hear isn't hidden in your thoughts. It's trapped in your chest, in your breath, in your skin. Your body always knew when something felt off, but maybe no one ever taught you to listen. You were trained to perform, to explain, to make sense of things. But intuition doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in tight shoulders, restless sleep, and that knot in your stomach. The body is the first to know and the last to be heard. And healing begins when we reverse that order. The polyvagal theory explains this in a way science finally agrees with. Your nervous system has a built-in alarm, the vagus nerve. It scans every environment, every voice, every pause, asking, am I safe? When the answer is no, your body doesn't wait for your mind to catch up. It freezes. It fawns. It shuts down or speeds up. This isn't weakness, it's survival. But when that system is constantly on high alert, you stop trusting your own signals. And that's when the voice inside begins to feel confusing. But here's a quiet truth. Your body doesn't lie. It only remembers. And the way back to intuition isn't thinking harder. It's building safety from the inside out. Grounding your feet on the floor. Scanning your body, not for flaws, but for presence. Noticing, where am I holding? What needs release? And writing it down not as poetry, but as truth. This is what somatic awareness feels like. There was a time I thought my intuition was broken, that I'd missed it too many times to trust it again. But I was just disconnected from the instrument, my own nervous system. It wasn't about guessing right. It was about creating the conditions to hear. Silence, slowness, stillness, and most of all, compassion. Because the voice you seek cannot shout above self-judgment. Sometimes the hardest voice to hear is your own. Not because it's silent, but because it's been drowned out by everyone else's. Advice, opinions, comparisons, they slip in subtly until your inner compass starts spinning, looking for permission instead of direction. You start seeking clarity in others, not because you trust them more, but because it feels easier than trusting yourself. But true responsibility begins when you stop outsourcing your truth. Try this radical act. Don't respond immediately. Breathe. Feel. Ask again. What do I really know beneath the noise? Your truth doesn't need to be immediate. It just needs to be yours. Everyone's trying to find their purpose like it's a destination on a map. Final, fixed, unquestionable. But your inner voice, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't hand you a title or a label. It gives you something much more alive, direction. One small pull at a time. one soft whisper that evolves as you do. And if you're waiting for absolute certainty before you begin, you might wait forever. Because purpose isn't a job, it's a frequency. It's how your soul feels when it's aligned, curious, present, alive. Your inner voice is not a static answer, it's a living rhythm. It shifts when you grow, bends when you break, returns when you pause. Think of it like walking through fog with a lantern. You don't see the finish line. You only see the next step. But somehow that's enough. You take one more breath, one more movement forward, and in that motion, purpose finds you. Not as a lightning strike, but as a quiet sense that this feels right for now. And that's more than enough to begin. Dove, what part of today's reflection echoed inside you like a forgotten truth? What would change in your life if you paused before asking the world and finally asked yourself? Let this be more than a video. Let it be a sacred interruption, a turning point where you choose to come home to your voice instead of chasing echoes. Are you ready for another step on this path? Should we keep exploring this together? How to stay grounded in a world that never stops pulling you away. Herb, tell me in the comments if you want a next video. Say, I'm listening now, and I'll know you're walking this with me. If this resonated, don't keep it in your head. Apply it. Speak slower. Choose softer. Let stillness be your new rebellion. Subscribe to Serena Sanctuary and tap the bell so your next reminder to come home to yourself arrives right on time, because your voice was never gone. It was just waiting for you to hear it again.